Hello and welcome back to DriveDriverDriven. I'm Humble and today's a little something different. We're kind of watching me put the car back together from tearing it all apart to get the motor out. But I wanted to kind of go over as a year in review just everything that's been happening. I know I haven't been posting a lot, well, basically the past 4 months, 5 months. And it wasn't until I started going back through everything that I realized why, and the answer is pretty obvious. I guess really where to start was just early in the year this year um, when I got the car that you see in front of you. The MK was supposed to be a buzzer beater, arriving just before or just after Christmas in 2023. And, due to a paperwork snafu, I didn't actually collect it until the 4th of January. Still, that being said, the shipping was so much faster than anything else before. I guess that sort of happens when you overnight a car, but that's really the truth of it. I think if everything had gone smoothly, this would have been door to door in like 96 hours, give or take, which is kind of crazy to think of. Also in January, I got the weather kit installed on the Zero, which made for some better winter driving experiences. All weather driving in a 7 is awful, but it's awful in a way that you want to share that with people. And so that's kind of how it went. Is I remember doing a couple of cold and rainy drives in January of this year. In February, the GT3 got a little bit of love, a little bit of a spit and polish, did some photo shoots, which came out amazing. But really, it was getting the car ready for events in March and April, and that was just about the only time I had. Speaking of March, that's when the engine from Moto IQ finally arrived. So that's the engine you see in the car, the K22, as it were. Um, uh, I've mentioned before just what kind of a powerhouse this engine is and how high spec the build is, but suffice to say, oh, nobody's got patience, and we all want to hear it fire up. So I'm with you on that. Like, I can't wait to hear this thing purr. April was a wild month. Just so much happening in such a small amount of time. Early on, Sean and I took a vacation over in Japan. This was my first time in the spring seeing the cherry blossoms, and it was pure serendipity that everything happened to line up. We had been hopeful, but as with all things, the cherry blossoms just bloom when they want to, and we were there to catch it. Uh, it was straight out of anime, just wonderful and beautiful. We had seen particular streets that are known for their cherry blossoms, and we'd seen it in the wintertime where they decorate the trees with lights to mimic that, but to actually see it in the spring in full splendor was amazing. We hit Mount Fuji and Fuji Speedway. Really enjoyed watching K racing. I believe it was like the Honda N box or something like that, where there was more cars, probably twice as many cars as there were grid slots, and watching probably the longest lap ever unfold on Fuji Speedway. We also got to do something I've wanted to do for a long time, which was to attend a matsuri, or a festival of some sort, while in Japan. And this time we were able to go to the Mount Inuyama sort of spring matsuri. Again, got to try all the festival foods, got to see these massive, like multi-ton wooden parade floats that they drag through town. Just amazing. and so glad that we got to see that. But then right on the heels of returning home from Japan, I had to hit the road in a Porsche to go to the air and water event in Costa Mesa. It's put on by the same folks that do Luftgekühlt, and last year was the first time that they included water-cooled Porsches at an event up here in the Bay Area on Mare Island. So I was really eager to check this out down in the LA area, Costa Mesa, and see kind of what the follow-up would be. Unfortunately, it really felt like a single mark a cars and coffee event that was large enough to fill a fairground. So it was kind of lacking that bespoke Luftgekühlt flavor that you see on their normal air-cooled events. That being said, I still had a great time. I got to meet up with a bunch of friends, some old, some new. Weirdly, the GT3 got placed sort of front and center in one of the main pavilions, which was wild. It's not anything what I was expecting. So right on the heels of the Porsche event, there was housework and cleanup that we had to do at the old place, and then we were kind of thrust right into the British Steel 3 rally put on by the Breakfast Club rally folks. There was a lot of prep work to get the Zero ready, and if I remember right, I believe it was raining off and on during that rally, and unfortunately my car was riding a little low with a passenger, and we felt it almost the entire trip. But I would call it a rain-soaked success in that we all had a great time and that's just another seven thing, that just misery loves company, and we had so much fun even though we were cold and soaked by the end of it. Looking back at it now, June is sort of where things started to go sideways this year. Just things got so busy and so much going on in a very compressed timeline. So in June, most of the month was doing okay. I had a dyno day for the Zero that we had tried to schedule before the driving event that didn't work out, but we got the Zero tuned up, and the last weekend in June is when we came to look at the house. That day in and of itself was a complete disaster. I don't know if I've ever told the story, but it's about one of the worst days that you could possibly have. But we made it. We made it to the house. We had a look around, got to meet the former owner and his wife, and really got to dig deep on a property that otherwise you may not have had the ability to do if you were dealing with, say, a seller's agent all alone. Long story short, we put an offer in on the house, and right around that same time in July, right in the beginning of July, I organized a Sevens Day, so 7-7. We did a fish and chips run. We got a handful of sevens together to do a 100-ish mile drive out to the coast and back to go have fish and trips like we had seen, time and time again our British counterparts do, and it was really great to do that very same thing ourselves. I wish that I had done it so much sooner, because having grouped all these people together, all these car owners, and then having to ditch that very same area, ditching the bay, just sucks, because I feel like I had only scratched the surface of all the get-togethers we could have had. Mid-July through, well, basically all of August was packing for the move, preparing for the move, doing the move, unpacking after the move, and so on. It was such a pain. And I think anybody who's had to move a garage specifically knows, or a project garage with active project knows, where it's not as simple as just boxing things up, but keeping everything organized, keeping the project organized. And to be fair, I still haven't fully recovered after the move, even to current date, as I'm only barely getting back into the MK again. It's just so much going on. One of the most memorable parts of the move for me was gathering up a bunch of friends who had helped with the packing and moving to drive my cars from the old place to the new place. Um, it feels a little bit like an out of body experience, seeing your car from the outside and getting to experience it in sort of a different way as other people see it. Um, it's one thing in video, but to watch your own car zip by on a hot rip is kind of fun to watch. The end of August through September and October is just a blur of house issues, getting everything ready for my folks to visit and going on a vacation. Coming back from that vacation only to find our AC failing after the last heat wave we got in October, leading to another big budget repair. So with the pool eating up a fair chunk of change and the AC eating up the kind of the rest of my little nest egg that I had prepared for these kind of problems, knowing full well that, just buying a house doesn't mean it doesn't have problems. So I was prepared. It just ate a lot more of my budget than I was expecting. And then that takes us into the holidays. Through November, Thanksgiving, work travel in December, and now right on the doorstep to Christmas and, well, New Year's right after, brings us to present day. It just, this whole year has gone by in a blur, and it ended in a far different way than I had anticipated at the beginning. I've said multiple times, early on, in fact, that I wanted the MK project done to have it driving in the spring. And then, one thing after another meant, well, we could probably finish it early summer. And then the house happened, and everything, just literally everything, took a back seat to the house. And I guess that's normal, but the ability to buy a house, having a house, buying my own house, was just never in my cards, especially here in California, where paying 7 digits for a house is just the norm. And look, I get it. The optics aren't, well, great. Guy with a bunch of expensive cars laments cost of house, but really where I was and where I'm still kind of at is that I could retire and rent for the rest of my life, or I could buy a house and work until I die. And I'm still kind of operating on those assumptions. I'll do a follow-up video with my health updates and how that's been going, but suffice to say, I'm extremely grateful to be a homeowner, to own my own house, to not have to deal with an HOA, to enjoy the massive quality of life improvements that it's brought, and to have a dream setup more than twice as big as what I used to be working out of. I just can't be thankful enough. Yearly review aside, let's take a look at what I was toiling on this whole time. Mostly it's putting this dry sump oil tank back in the car, but what's hard to see is beneath it there's a new access hole so that I can easily drain the tank while it sits in the car. And I was trying to get a good shot of it here, but I had to space off the lower bracket just a touch using a couple of washers, one on either side, um, because that panel is just warped from heat, and it doesn't quite sit flush, and it was pulling the lower end of the tank in. So with that spaced out, it now sits plumb up and down. On the interior here in the footwell, you can see that footwell panel is just trimmed up a hair so that now this tunnel side panel sits in nice and flush. It's got plenty of room to go in. It's really tight, but it's a perfect fit. And you can see how everything lines up. I think that's just about going to do it for today. Thanks for tagging along for this little recap of the year and getting a little bit of work done on the MK while we were at it. As I said before, I'll have a little follow-up about my health, kind of the past, the present, and the future. I'll save that for the next one. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.